Okay, so in a video I made a while ago, I talked about Alicent Hightower and how the showrunners went too far with her character pacification, by taking away agency and responsibility from her actions. So, not only did they give her an excuse for everything she does, with that stupid prophecy scene where Viserys dies in his bed, but they also decided to make her unaware of a political coup that was happening right under her nose, even though she's allied with the best spy master in Westeros. Seriously, how did Larys not know about this? Or did he know but not tell her for some reason? Also, because they wanted to make her look better, they made her father Otto and her son Aegon so much more evil than they are supposed to be. Like, why? Why would you make them so evil? This is not how you do character pacification. This is how you do character pacification. So, in this video, I want to talk about Aemond Targaryen, who has become a fan favorite character and for good reason. He's a very interesting character who is a lot more sympathetic than in the book, and is an example of character pacification done right. So here's the thing, Aemond still has some of the characteristics that he does in the book, but he's a much better character. It's mostly because we sympathize with him when he was a child and was getting bullied because he didn't have a dragon, and because he's so desperate to prove himself. His character was definitely pacified from his book counterpart, where he is basically a psychopath who murders an entire family because they may or may not be cowards or traitors. Then he proceeds to betray his own men and leave them to run away north with a sexy witch that he met. Yeah, spoiler alert I guess, but the show will probably change this anyway. They will probably give him a good reason for this. Nonetheless, Aemond got a lot more character development in the show than in the book, that's for sure. And the show used this as an opportunity to add more layers to his character. We see that he's a lot more dutiful than his brother, and he is also envious that he is the one who gets to be king just because he was born first. A classic second son struggle. We also see that Aemond is much closer to his mother and sister than he is to his brother and father, for obvious reasons. We got a chance to see what he was like when he was a child. You know, with his inferiority complex because he did not have a dragon, something most Targaryen children are expected to have, his desire to prove himself, and his courage when he tries to claim the biggest dragon in the world, only to be punished for it. Instead of telling him how proud he is, his father Viserys is angry at Aemond for the words that he spoke during the fight with Jace and Luke. And his older sister Rhaenyra wants to have him tortured for it? What the fuck? Aemond was not born a bad guy, you know. He was shaped by the injustices around him. Something that becomes very clear when we see him train with Cole. Aemond was affected by his past experiences, and wants to make sure that they never happen again. That's why he trains. That's why he wanted to have the biggest dragon in the world by his side. We can easily relate to that because we all have been weak in certain moments in our lives. And we all felt inferior to others in some way or another at some point in our lives. Maybe they were smarter, stronger than us, or they simply had something we did not. And it made us feel less than we are. So suddenly, Aemond becomes super relatable and sympathetic to most viewers. However, making a character relatable and sympathetic is only the first part of pacifying villainous characters like Aemond. The second part is about their actions. How do you justify their evil or great deeds? How do you pacify them after they kill someone? Or do something horrible? Do you give them a good reason for it? Or do you try to make it look like an accident, to take away responsibility from them? This is what the writers did with Alicent in episode 8 and 9. They gave her the whole dream accident with Viserys in his dying bed to justify her naming Aegon king, and they made Otto the main villain behind the coup, in order to excuse her actions. Oh, you see, the coup to make Aegon king would have happened anyway. It is not her fault, she didn't even know about it. The problem though is that by doing so they took away agency from Alicent's character. Her actions are the result of a misunderstanding, and therefore they don't really affect her character. Before this, Alicent was conflicted between her desire to see her son Aegon become king and her mixed feelings towards Rhaenyra, because she thought she would make a better ruler. Because of this twist, however, Alicent herself does not change as a person because of her choices. The fact that she doesn't really need to betray Rhaenyra. Aemond's situation, however, is different, and his tragic accident in episode 10 actually works so much better than Alicent's deathbed scene with Viserys. There are 3 simple reasons to why this accident works. 1. Aemond still has some responsibility left for Luke's death. Even though Aemond did not go after Luke with the intention to kill him, he still decided to chase him in the first place. His ego, his arrogance, and his recklessness is what created this situation in the first place. If he hadn't gone after Luke and acted like an asshole, this would not have happened. And again, even though he was obviously shocked by what happened and did not want to kill Luke, he still has some responsibility left for it. And a sense of guilt as well, something that might actually add to his character and make him more interesting. Did they actually improve a character from the book? Second, Aemond losing control of his dragon makes so much sense for the rules set up by George R.R. Martin. In the Game of Thrones books, Daenerys constantly struggles to control her dragons, especially Drogon. To quote the book, neither whip nor words could turn Drogon if he did not wish to be turned. The whip annoyed him more than it hurt him. In the book this show is based on, the dragon Silverwing disobeys Queen Alicent's orders when she tries to get him to fly over the wall. We also saw Vhagar disobey Laena's orders to kill her in episode 6. We also see that Vhagar doesn't want to kill Laena. Dragons have a will of their own, and they can disobey their riders. Viserys even warns us about this in the very first episode. So yeah, this accident makes so much sense for the world of Westeros and the rules established by George R.R. Martin, as well as the show itself. Third, we know that Aemond will face some consequences for his actions. People do not know that this was an accident, and that he did not go after Luke with the intention to kill him. All they know is that Aemond acted like an asshole in front of Boros Baratheon and his men, and then he proceeded to mount his dragon Vhagar and chased Luke in the middle of a storm, and then Arrax's dead body fell from the sky in pieces. So yeah, as far as Westerosi society is concerned, Aemond Targaryen is willingly a kinslayer, because at the end of the day, bastard or no, Luke was still his nephew, and kinslaying is a terrible sin in Westeros. People who commit it are considered cursed or cruel. And there is also the fact that Aemond is the first Targaryen kinslayer since Maegor the Cruel.
Beneath the god's eye, Maegor's disparate forces came together and attacked Aegon as Maegor himself swooped down from the clouds. For the first time since the doom of Valyria, dragon fought dragon in the sky. But Aegon's dragon was no match for Balerion the Dread, who was 4 times its size. When Aegon fell to his death, his army broke and fled. For slaying his own nephew, Maegor forever after became known as the Cruel. Though of course, not to his face.
Aemond will have to deal with a lot of shit in the following season, and since we know it wasn't exactly his fault, we feel sorry for him. We know that war is about to begin too, and that is partially his fault. This is where this accident scenario works, because it does not take away all the responsibility and consequences from Aemond, and it does leave him with a notable sense of guilt as well. I mean, just look at him, at his face after Vhagar kills Luke. Aemond knows he fucked up, no joke, and the fact that he knows that, and already feels bad for it, makes him so much more interesting. At the end of the day, Aemond is still a great character, which is good for a show like House of the Dragon, which is all about giving us morally complex and great characters. Most of the time anyway. I mean, think about it. If Aemond had just killed Luke and laughed or smirked after doing so, he would have looked like Ramsay Bolton or Euron Greyjoy, some typically psychotic asshole cliche villain. It would have been rather bland and uninteresting for his later character development. So, in the long run, this is actually a good thing for Aemond's character. Aemond looks like a villain, and he will be treated as such by Westerosi society. So, what will Aemond do now? Will he embrace his role as a villain and become one? What will he do now that his reputation is falling apart? In conclusion, I want to say that I know it sounds really silly, but that is the key to writing good character pacification. Agency, responsibility, and most importantly, consequences. House of the Dragon is a show about great characters making great choices. The characters of the show are often their own biggest enemies. As George R.R. Martin puts it, the only thing worth writing for is the human heart in conflict with itself. That is why the characters' choices matter. Because as they make their choices make them. Define who they are and who they will become. However, as they make these choices, these decisions, they will have to face the consequences of their actions. Otherwise, those choices would not matter, would they? Still, it is important to not go too far and take away agency from their decisions, or responsibility and consequences from their actions. This is how you pacify a character. You make them relatable, reasonable, but also somewhat responsible for their choices and tragic fate. It is important to not take away agency from these characters. But hey, what do you guys think? Do you think that Aemond is a villain? Or maybe an anti-hero? Or maybe just a teenager who made some mistakes. If you made it all the way to the end, thank you so much for watching. Please, consider sharing, liking and subscribing. It really helps out a lot. Thank you for watching and goodbye.